Hello, I'm Joe from WhatCulture.com and welcome to the RAW Pre-Show Podcast. I am joined by both Adams this week. I'm joined by Adam Blampied and Adam Pacitti, no longer looking like Bret Hart with AIDS, according to some Scotsman.
Wow, we're starting strong.
That's what Kenny said.
He's a bastard.
By the way, Kenny, I'm just going to point out, double the views, my friend. Double the views. It's on.
You can't see us, etc. And with both Adams on this one, you can only imagine what the views are going to do. You can only imagine. We are the franchise.
We are indeed. We are indeed. So, let's talk about last night. Hell in a Cell, a Raw exclusive pay-per-view.
It was good. It was very good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it throughout. I just thought it was great. Solid.
Some questionable decisions. I feel I'm not.
I know a lot of people. Not to skip ahead to the main event. A lot of people are upset about Charlotte winning. Not in a heat way. They just think the belt is going back and forth too much.
Yeah,
I think there's a point there.
Does Vince have something against hometown heroes? I mean, Sasha in a hometown, a grand entrance.
Everyone gets bollocks in their hometown, especially if it's JR's hometown. But Sasha, yeah, I like you said last night, it was the first women's main event. You should end it. Why not end it with a huge surge of triumph, right? Because that is a legitimate confetti moment. It could have been Sasha in front of Boston, retaining the belt in the first ever Hell in a Cell match, first ever main event, huge swell of positive feeling. I can't fathom why they didn't do it.
Absolutely, and you had a match which was booked so that she was selling the back throughout. People legitimately thought she was injured at points.
Right.
What a tremendous underdog story for her to get that win.
Yeah,
and they didn't do it, and it does seem like a shame.
Is it just courting like unexpected swerve heat? Is that just what they're obsessed with when they're having hometown heroes be flummoxed? I generally don't see it because it was hot potato so much. Once out of necessity because Sasha had to take time off.
Yeah.
But like this time around, I just don't get it, and I think it left a lot of people with a bit of a sour taste in their mouth.
It's a shame.
Since the inception of the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania, there's been 4 title changes.
I know, it's crazy.
And that's in the space of, let's call it 7 months.
Yeah. Sasha wins it on pay-per-view. Charlotte wins it on pay-per-view, Sasha wins it on Raw. That's just how it goes now. It feels really weird.
Someone to me made a great comparison between The Rock and Mankind and the hot potato they had over the WWF title. In 1999, and saying, don't worry, it's happened with The Rock and Mankind, and they went on to become 2 of the greatest. Can we take that comfort, or is there still a little bit of worry regarding this?
I think it's a shame. I think they missed out on a great moment, but ultimately I think the feud has been great. Like, the hot potatoing of the title didn't stop this match from feeling huge, and if they have another match, that will also feel big. I think if this is the end of this feud for now, even in a microcosm, I know you've switched the belt back a couple of times, but who can deny that history was made last night in a main event I felt genuinely lived up to the hype that
really enjoyed it. As you say, it just felt big. Everything from the entrances to the storytelling, it felt like WrestleMania.
Yeah, it did, absolutely. It's the biggest match that they've had. It felt like bigger than the Triple Threat at Mania.
It's the first time in over 300 pay-per-views that WWE have ever done. It's the first time that the women have ever headlined, and that's got to feel special to Charlotte and Sasha.
Absolutely. And who deserved it more? Like they are the women's feud in wrestling at the moment.
Last point before we move on to something else. Who goes next? Do we think Sasha gets the rematch, or do we start moving towards maybe the Bayley story?
Could be, they could be doing Charlotte Bayley at Mania. I think that would be a good feud. Yeah. A lot of it depends on Raw, because like some people thought that the ending of the Cell match was changed on the fly. Maybe. I mean, you mentioned like that before we started taping.
There's been some talk about whether there was the back injury to Sasha was legitimate. I feel timing may have had something to do with that because they were overrun by about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were told to cut the match. So I think they had some horrible luck in the match last night. I think you mentioned it on the What Just Happened video. There's been some horrible luck with the table spots.
Yeah, it was a shame. It was a shame because it really did detract from things as well. It was still a really, really enjoyable match, but those dodgy tables and the legs coming out of the way, it was just
like
bad luck.
Charlotte going through the table in what looked like slow motion. She looked like she was going through it underwater.
Yeah.
Like that's just not a Cell table bump.
So do you think the finish was changed? It felt like it to me.
Yeah.
I generally don't know. It's really hard to think, considering like if she had gone through the table And then like she, oh my God, my back, and she crawled to her feet, and she was maybe just like trying to fight Charlotte, and then Charlotte gives her the natural selection. That would have felt like more of a better told story, but the table just didn't break. So maybe it didn't feel like her, bouncing off the table twice, then natural selection. There's no way that was the finish.
Right. To me, I don't want to be a killjoy on this, but I felt that the outside table spot with a ring announcer's table was a little bit underwhelming, and it didn't actually utilise the sell. It was just a powerbomb through the table.
Maybe they were worried about seeming like a direct rip-off of Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, like going off the cell through the table.
Yeah.
But they should have done that, because if you're climbing up the cell, and then she just sort of slowly clambered down into a powerbomb, and then shame, but also just the cables. The cables
It was the stretcher,
was so cringeworthy.
It was, and they didn't cut away. Kevin Dunn, I'm not going to do a Ross here, but goodness me, Kevin Dunn, you could have just had Charlotte in the ring while you were getting the cables away from her.
You had something to cut to.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Cruiserweights. There was at least another new champion crowned last night, with the Brian Kendrick taking the victory over TJ Perkins.
Yep.
Is this going to freshen up the Cruiserweight division, do we feel? I think you mentioned a very good point, I'm sorry to interrupt, about TJ Perkins' credibility. He looked like an idiot. Massive drop last night.
Yeah. He's a dumb babyface now.
Falling for one of the simplest tricks.
He looks like that's like Zack Ryder levels of stupidity, falling for Kendrick, who's very obviously a heel going into it, and like he's doing the whole begging off thing, and to be like, "Are you okay, man?"
I liked it. No, I genuinely liked it. I think Kendrick needed something to further, like a real push the heel thing, because a lot of people are still wondering if Kendrick is or isn't. Like people discuss that all the time. No, I think it was good, and it was classic. It was traditional heel stuff. It was cheap. It was cheap. But I quite like that.
How quickly do we see the rematch? Because I have an odd feeling they're going to get the rematch clause out of the way and hopefully move on to some new challenges in the Cruiserweight division.
I think that's wise. Get Perkins. Have someone cost Perkins his rematch, get a separate Cruiserweight feud going there, which will hopefully give Perkins a bit of character.
Yeah.
And then Kendrick, I think, is the right man to be leading the Cruiserweight division, because he has the most character out of everyone. Kendrick versus Rich Swan, I think, would be a brilliant...
I think Cedric.
Cedric
got the pin yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. Do we think Cedric with the pin gets the...
Yeah.
And people are behind Cedric as well. That'll be a nice feud.
Yeah. I mean, Swan already has the victory over Kendrick from last week's Raw, so maybe they might use that to parlay into something. But, you've got a couple of challenges lined up. It's definitely going to be either Cedric or Swan.
I think, speaking on that, it would make sense. There's not a lot of heel versus heel, face versus face dynamics. Could get away with doing a number one contenders match potentially between Swan and Alexander.
Yeah, absolutely.
The winner goes to Survivor Series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any, it's face versus face, but I don't think that needs to be an impediment, Just present it like a sporting contest. Cruiserweight Classic was all about that. I think that would be a great match, and then just Kendrick watching. Kendrick on commentary, I imagine, would be great.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Moving on to the tag team division. There were two sort of elevated matches last night. Let's talk about the Good Brothers, the club. They got a win that they desperately needed last night.
Badly. Enzo and Kat are a team that can get away with taking loss after loss after loss. They're still tremendously over.
Yep.
They're great talkers, they're charismatic, and it means that they can afford a loss from time to time, even on a pay-per-view.
I don't want to see the club lose now for a few months as well.
No,
they really desperately that's the starting point, right? They need to keep winning. They need to once again be booked as a legitimate threat.
The question is, do they then continue the feud with Enzo and Cass, or do they part ways and give the club someone they can beat a couple of times? Because Enzo and Cass surely have to get a win at some point.
I'd quite like them to just beat team after team, even if they get fed Shining Stars tonight. It would just be nice to have them dominate for a bit.
A magic killer on the Shining Stars would be...
That would be nice.
Wonderful. Over and over and over again. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I really wouldn't. The other tag team match was, of course, the tag team title match. I read an interesting stat on Twitter. 4 straight title defences, apparently. I think it's more 3 out of 4, that the New Day have retained the titles by disqualification.
Right? At SummerSlam.
And they are credible faces.
I mean, people don't seem to care because they're the New Day, but I do think it does blur the lines between the heel-face dynamic, which is sort of... I didn't really mind it that much last night because there was so much story going on in the match anyway between Cesaro and Sheamus. I thought it ending a little messily probably is what needed to happen, because Cesaro and Sheamus being beaten I thought didn't do them any favours. And New Day, they want them to break this. They want them to break the reign. Don't they?
We're going to be having this conversation again and again for the next few months, aren't we? It's just that the demolition thing, it's not going anywhere.
Realistically, Cesaro and Sheamus, they look like they've started to gel a little bit with the common goal of the tag team titles.
Yeah, the backstage stuff was good. They were getting on backstage. It was good and it's really enjoyable. It's fun to watch.
They're really
a cool
good
team.
With a disqualification victory over the New Day last night, realistically, do they get another shot?
You'd think so.
Potentially tonight.
I can't see, with the short amount of time that we've got before Survivor Series, I can't see another team that would be a credible title match there. So I'd like to see it. And I'd like to see them win it, Survivor Series.
Well,
but they won't.
They won't.
Speaking of Survivor Series, we look at the 4 teams we just mentioned there. Amore and Cass, the Good Brothers, the tag team champions in New Day, and Cesaro and Sheamus. We're still looking to fill 5 teams in the Raw slot for the Survivor Series match. And with those matches doing away with championship matches, do we think those 4 are credible teams to go into that match with SmackDown?
I mean, the thing about this Survivor Series teams is I hope there's lots of infighting. I like it when teams are comprised of good and bad. You know, like the SummerSlam Nexus versus Team WWE. The fact that Team WWE can get along was one of the better parts of that match. So I think, considering that, like, the New Day and everyone who's challenged them for the tag titles in one team, I think would be fun.
Cesaro and Sheamus would do some terrific stuff in that match as well. You know, the arguments that they would get into, it would be fun.
Exactly. The club as well.
And
then who else has challenged the New Day recently? It's just been the club, Sheamus and Cesaro. And then before that, I can't remember. Well, before that it was the brand split, and it was like they were fighting the Wyatts, weren't they? So
the Wyatts, the Usos, things like that. Another one that we're going to talk about, the United States Championship match. Roman Reigns, as predicted, went over Rusev, but it was a great match.
Yeah, it was.
Really lots of physicality. It made Rusev look brilliant.
It was heel stuff for Rusev as well, which was so unbelievably important after, you know, he's getting a lot of criticism at the moment because actually Roman's been the heel with the wedding stuff. To see the chain stuff was fantastic.
I mean, the chain across the mouth was good, but for me, just hitting him with the chain, you don't see that much anymore because tying it's really hard to fake that.
Kendo stick as well, the Andre the Giant spot, as you called it. It was good stuff.
Is it bad that I really enjoyed the spear from Roman?
It's a good
best spear in the business. Seriously,
because
he's so good. When he jumped Sasha on Raw and hit the spear, one of the best bits this year.
I mean, like the spear he did at SummerSlam as well. Just when he runs all the way down the ramp, does the Charles Robinson run down the ramp and then hits the spear. He does that really, really well. I think this feud is over. I think it's time for Roman to get a new challenger. Time for Rusev to get maybe into a feud that he can win, ideally. But you know, I'm not complaining. I think Rusev looked strong coming out of last night.
You talked very interesting about Roman getting a new challenger. Did you see the interview on Raw Talk last night?
No, we didn't see it.
He's talking about going for the Universal Championship. He was talking about doing what Rollins failed to do, which we'll touch upon in a minute.
So we talked. He's got broad shoulders, and he's got one title on one shoulder, and he needs another.
He's talking about going for the Universal title, which we'll get on to. Obviously, Kevin Owens defended the title successfully against Seth Rollins via Y2J shenanigans. No Triple H involved, though.
No.
Which I think was a shock.
Unless Triple H turns up tonight, I don't think we're getting Seth versus.
No, there's just not time, is there?
I was about to say, if he doesn't show up tonight, do you think that's officially being held off until WrestleMania?
Rumble, maybe?
Maybe Rumble.
Potentially start at the Rumble, have Seth go into the Rumble match, and Triple H, doing the whole I am the game, I'm going to screw you over,
it's
and you're going to face me at WrestleMania.
It's a long burn that could really work. It'll be a really interesting feud. And it feels big.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see it at Survivor Series, to be honest, just because the longer we go without hearing from Triple H, the more kind of the story feels a little bit weaker for it. But it looks like Seth Rollins is going with Y2J for now, which is going to be giving him the code breaker after the match.
Yeah, that would be a good match to see.
We'll see how that develops tonight.
Does that mean Reigns gets what he wants? Maybe the next title match with Owens?
It depends whether or not Owens is going to be in the Survivor Series.
It would make sense for me if he captains it. Like, for me, the two captains of the singles teams, at least, should be the two champions.
They should.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have the dominant status on the show with the titles. I don't know how well AJ Styles looks at the moment, having not had a clean win in maybe a month. But for me, the two champions of the show should be captaining.
Yeah,
You think
It
so?
makes logical sense.
and especially like if Roman were to cost Kevin Owens, then that gives SmackDown I think SmackDown should absolutely walk out Survivor Series with the win. AJ Styles as a captain walking out Survivor Series with the win would be great, like you say, to capitalise on the fact that he's been getting wins via shenanigans, and it would set Roman versus Kevin Owens up for maybe a great TLC. Is TLC Raw or is TLC
I think TLC
SmackDown?
The heat that's going to get Roman going for both titles, I don't know how you can do that with Roman as a face. The audience are going to be pissed off.
Yeah,
They were pissed off yesterday.
because they were just like, oh god, Boston hated Roman.
Yeah, and understand, that's pretty. But like him going for both titles is, to me, a little bit of a heel move, given the thoughts, given the kind of the way that the audience feels about him.
Yeah.
I think it'll upset people, but if they do it with a heel turn, that'll be incredible.
That's
serious heat.
That's kind of what I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to this Raw because lots and lots of questions unanswered, and lots of kind of like, because Survivor Series is looking like they're really investing in the show, being big. Obviously, you got Goldberg versus Lesnar. It's a 4-hour show now. Yippee!
Is it a plus a 2-hour pre-show? I mean,
I don't know about the
2
pre-show,
hour.
but it was definitely confirmed that it's a 4-hour show.
so in total 5 hours minimum.
Yeah, good stuff.
Oh,
Right?
why didn't they learn? Why didn't they learn from SummerSlam? the crowd, it killed it.
Yeah.
Mental.
So, but it means a lot of stuff coming out on this Raw. All the directions to Survivor Series being laid out.
And one thing we haven't talked about yet, I've read WWE.com, apparently Goldberg will be showing up tonight.
That was on the Hell in a Cell last night. They mentioned Goldberg will be there. I wonder if he's going to talk about the promo last week, which was aborted halfway through. I kind of don't want to see any more of Goldberg. Because his one thing where he came out, got the huge ovation, is now the superhero for the kids. Like, other than him putting hands on someone, I don't know what else there is to see of Goldberg.
We're not going to see
you
a
can only
stare
get a
down.
diminished reaction, I think.
Yeah,
unless
absolutely.
he hits someone.
Yeah, a spear to someone would be very, very nice.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see them in the ring until the Raw before Survivor Series.
Maybe
So where do you go?
huge
I
pull apart.
don't just want to see Brock one week or Heyman and then Goldberg and back and forth and back. It just I don't know.
Yeah, for me, the only time we should see either Lesnar or Goldberg now would be a contract signing.
Yeah.
Before, probably the Raw before Survivor Series, where they could get their hands on each other.
I really want to see
Something
'cause,
like that.
they're going through the whole MMA thing with this story.
Yeah.
I'd like to see like a press conference, like a proper, because they're using
Oh,
WWE's
how-
using this to sell Survivor Series. Like, it's the tentpole match, definitely. And I'd love to see like an actual press conference which descends into like a fight lane with them throwing water bottles at each other, Conor McGregor style.
Yeah.
I'd love to see like something like that, just blur the lines, because you will sell this match on how much of a legitimate fight it's going to feel like. And at the moment, Goldberg being superhero dad and Lesnar with sort of half aborted promos where the fans are sort of liking him but not really. It feels a little watered down right now.
It was a complete logistical error on WWE's part. They
believe
must have known that was going to happen. What were they thinking?
In Brock Lesnar's hometown, he's going to be treated like a
Mental.
saint.
Of
In
course.
Toronto, because he's based in Canada now, he's going to be treated like a saint.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get the same thing with at Survivor Series.
Yeah, and it's taken away a lot of what they achieved at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Lesnar coming out of that, what a heel!
Yeah, he was a
seriously.
twat.
Yeah,
An
awful.
absolute twat.
Yeah, awful. And now you're showing him on national TV getting cheered. Like, what are they thinking?
And smiling about it as well. Like, when they chanted his name, he couldn't help but smirk, because he knew. Like, they must have had like a chat backstage and be like, "Yeah, we were right. Of course they're cheering me.
Yeah.
it's Minneapolis."
It's
Hugely
like
damaging.
you don't want him doing WrestleMania 20 flipping the bird at his hometown and telling him what to go away, but at the same time you don't want him being a face and enjoying lapping up the
you
reaction.
say, it gets rid of like all the great stuff from SummerSlam, and just you hate Brock Lesnar now. He feels like a horrible guy, but now, that's been muddied, and I think it's important that Goldberg does something cool tonight.
Yeah.
To just claw back a little bit of that kind of support that he was getting.
A spear would do that.
A spear would do that.
I don't know who he speared.
Shining Stars.
Shining Stars.
Give them everything. Double spear, double jackhammer, everything. Just go for it. In case anyone can tell, I don't like the Shining Stars. I wonder why.
Oh, who can tell?
Final.
maybe a little bit stressed. Maybe you need a holiday. Have you considered going to Puerto Rico?
Oh God, subtlety was never my strong point. Final question before we move on to Twitter questions: does Goldberg versus Lesnar headline Survivor Series?
It will.
Should it?
No, I've got to kind of stick what I've said all along. I always think that the title should headline a show, and not just because of tradition, but because the belt is the most valuable asset in the company, and it should always feel that way.
Building stars, yeah.
Right? It should mean so much, and they devalued it time and time again. But it won't. It'll be just like SummerSlam. Everybody was saying it, and yeah, there you go. Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar headlined it after the crowd was already dead. They shit all over the Universal title, and it's a shame. That's what's going to happen, though.
Yeah.
I feel like if they were to put enough, like if they went out on Raw tonight and filled these Survivor Series matches, this best of 3 that they're doing, if they filled that with stakes, like there could be changes to the roster, there could be like a huge.
I've heard something.
Yeah, I've heard a rumor like if whichever brand wins gets to do a couple of changes. If they just fill that with stakes, then I could picture a huge kind of like only top stars 5-on-5 Survivor Series match headlining, like Kevin Owens, Jericho, Rollins, Roman, and someone else versus Styles, Ambrose,
Cena, things
Ellsworth,
like that.
maybe.
Oh,
Ellsworth's a good inclusion there. I'd like to see him destroyed and written off, but I think that's a really decent inclusion. I was watching Survivor Series 2014 yesterday, headlined by 5-on-5 match, and it felt big and it felt special, and they've got enough talent there to do that again.
Yeah, it could do. It could happen.
It could. We'll see.
Chances are Lesnar versus Goldberg.
I'd put money on
it. It'd be safely bet, I think. Right, we're going to move on to some Twitter questions now. Thank you very much, everyone who wrote in. The first question that we have here is from Tyler Fox. Do you think the women could potentially headline WrestleMania 33?
Depends what's on the card to me. I'm not anti it. If the feud means enough, then it should do. The women's title is as important as the men's title, so it can do if it means enough.
I think it's incredibly unlikely.
It is unlikely.
I think when it comes down to the casual fans, I think WWE would be more afraid of shooing off a big chunk of their returning casual fan base by having women's match close it.
But they don't have to advertise that, the buy rate's what's important, right? And they don't have to say that the women's match will be on last.
No, just build up the story and make it feel like the most important story on the event, and then people won't reject it. But
it's going to depend on other factors, like how big the Owens Jericho things go. Does Finn come back before WrestleMania?
Well, just judging from the rumors from Hell in a Cell that Vince, up until the last moment, was very anti the women going on last. I don't see him messing with WrestleMania anytime soon.
No, not the grand one. Not the grand one. Wrestling Rules asks, how long do you think they'll keep Charlotte's, let's put it this way, fantastic pay-per-view streak going? She hasn't lost on a pay-per-view yet.
No.
She
feels like a champion.
Yeah,
it really does, more so than Sasha. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see her now hold it until WrestleMania.
Do we think that's when it goes, when Bayley takes the title?
If Bayley takes the title. Or even Sasha again, to be honest. Yeah. There's enough mileage there, but I would like to see Bayley included in that match.
I don't know what you do with Sasha now. I'd quite like to see Charlotte write her off and like get a lot of heel momentum by injuring her.
She keeps going. Sasha's not a good person. I think they'll probably put her in a quick feud with Dana, maybe.
Oh, Dana.
Just to get some momentum back.
Maybe Sasha and Nia, maybe.
You're going to kill Nia.
Yeah.
I think Nia's still out, which kills that off.
I find it, like, working out what they do with Sasha. Well, I mean, obviously Survivor Series is fine because I think you put them all in the 5-on-5 match, Sasha, Charlotte and stuff.
Yeah.
After that, I'm not sure, really.
Do you bring Asuka up?
I don't think so.
No. I agree.
If you bring Asuka up, you've got nothing really down in NXT.
Well,
Yeah.
it's already the case, to be honest.
Yeah, but like you need, like, if Asuka can put on great matches with the likes of Billie Kay and stuff, then you can at least attempt to build those guys up. Whereas creating a complete vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Sliplock asks, if Reigns goes after Owens like it looks like it's going to, and Seth does a feud with Y2J, what happens with Ruru? What happens with Rusev?
Who'd you put him with? I was just thinking, it's a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Someone they can beat, as you say, would be handy.
I think him and Zayn would have a great feud if Zayn is not too busy with the big guy, the strong man, brawny strong man. I think I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be averse to seeing him be put in a tag team now and like let them add depth to the tag team division, maybe.
But who would you team him with?
I don't know. To be honest, I think Rusev right now belongs in the 5-on-5. And if it's just comprised of top layer talent, Rusev absolutely belongs in there. Yeah. And I think it's just a case of they'll probably keep the infighting with him and Roman going just because they'll probably both be in that match. But yeah, I think that will probably be what happens.
Mr. Mike asks, why is the Queen Charlotte so hard to defeat when the lights are on brightest? Do you think it's just the booking, or do you think they know Charlotte has this ability to just perform in big matches?
She really does.
She's incredibly reliable. Has she gone out for injury at any point during her main roster run?
I don't believe so.
No. She's a reliable heat magnet. She's great at riling up the crowd. Like, she's a heel that people don't think is cool, which is very important. Like, they respect her, but they are annoyed by her. And she's a really, really good, reliable hand to keep the belt on, especially if you're in the lead up to, if you want a big title change, Charlotte is absolutely the right person to go on. I would have thought they'd have done it maybe at the Rumble or like just before, but I think she's just, she looks like a superstar. She acts like a superstar.
She really does.
She's one of the best heels in the company. That's why she's been as protected as she is, and damn right too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said before, I think this brilliant pay-per-view streak goes on to WrestleMania.
It needs to now. It needs after so much back and forth with the title.
Not even a disqualification loss. Just win after win after win after win.
Also, it makes sense for the Survivor Series thing because SmackDown Tag Team Division is strongest. That can win that match. Yep. The Women's Division on Raw is strongest, so women win that match. And then it comes to the final match.
Comes to the 5-on-5.
And I would have SmackDown win that. You know, I feel like...
I feel like SmackDown might need a few more stars on there at the moment. Final question. I do words good. What a Twitter handle.
What? I do words. Yes, I do words good.
024. Because I do words good was already taken.
Yeah, exactly.
He is the 24th that I do words good.
But I do words good 24 asks, could we see a women's Royal Rumble match down the line?
There's just not enough.
I don't think there's enough depth.
No, and you don't want to have like a mini Rumble.
Yeah, 10 man. It seems tokenistic.
It seems like if you look at WWE games, the smallest you can do is 20, and obviously that's the smallest that they've ever done. They did 20 in the first Royal Rumble, if I'm not mistaken. So it would feel sort of undervalued if they did less than a 20-person Royal Rumble.
Yeah, unless you bring back people like Mickey, Trish would be great.
I don't think you can bring Trish back until the back end of 2017. She was rumoured to be doing the match with Asuka.
Right? And she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So we'll see.
I mean, there are enough depth. Like even bringing back I don't know, Lita, Tori, Ivory. You know, there are names there that could make it feel big, but you need at least 20 in there for it to feel like a Royal Rumble. That's the important thing.
Yeah, you could do it, but like I said, I think it would feel really quite token at this point. I think you're more likely to get a women's Money in the Bank.
Yeah,
at this
makes
stage.
sense.
An interpromotional one probably. Right.
That's going to do it for this week's episode of the RAW Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter as usual at the Joe Simkins.
At Adam the Blampied.
At Adam Pacitti. And by the way, I will be joining Adam Blampied on our WhatCulture extra stream tonight. Jack is going to be doing SmackDown because I'm going to World of Sport tomorrow.
You lucky sod. Yeah. Why am I not going?
It's a holiday.
God damn it.
A paid one as well, you lucky bastard.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm Joe from
Write
WhatCulture.
your lists.
Back to work, dickheads. I'm Joe from WhatCulture.com, and we'll see you soon.